Today on MuscleCar, we've got a little red roadster to upgrade that's going to get in the ring with a big bad snake. We'll make it go faster and better and see if new school performance can bring the pain to a proven old school winner.
Hey guys, welcome to MuscleCar. Now if you're into old cars enough to be watching a show like this, you probably already know what this is. An original AC Shelby Cobra. The name alone is enough to get most gearheads blood pumping. But on top of that, this bad boy is no small block Cobra, it's a 427. Now oddly enough, even though these things were kicking butt all over the racing circuits, well, they didn't go over very big with the general public.
As a result, only 300 of the 427s were built, making this one of the most sought after and expensive collector cars on the planet.
So what's a guy to do? Well, do you like powerful cars? Check. Do you like cars that handle well? Again, check. Well, you want an original Cobra, but you don't want to have to live in the thing too. Well, here's one option, a Factory 5 Roadster.
If you're looking for a project that'd be unique, challenging, and rewarding, then one of these may be just right for you. The Factory 5 Roadster is the world's best-selling replica automobile.
Now, these replicas start at just under $13,000 and just a tick under $20,000 for a complete kit. Now that gets you everything except the engine, drivetrain, wheels, tires, and paint. Now some guys will use a 5.0 Mustang as a donor car to build this, but you don't have to. See, over the years, Factory 5 has developed these kits to accept all kinds of different drivetrains and suspension components.
So you could toss in any number of engines and drivetrains into one of those and get you a car that looks a little something like one of these. Matter of fact, it looked a lot like that.
This is Jim Skank, Factory 5's crew chief. If anybody knows their way around a car, it's this guy.
Good to see you again, Rick.
Hey, good seeing you.
I brought Scott along with us too to help put some of these parts on.
Awesome.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. An extra wrench is always good to have.
Yes, sir.
This is one of our Roadster kits. It's got Ford's newest mod motor, the 5-liter Coyote, for a power plant. The parts on it are great for a Friday night cruise, and you'll embarrass just about anybody that wants to line up with it. But we can do better. We've got some buddies in the aftermarket world that make some parts that can take this car to a whole new level.
Well, there's one good way to figure out how bad you can really make one of these things, but you kind of got to put it up against something that's had a track record, if you know what I mean.
Well, guys, I say we take the new tech, line it up against the old tech, see who comes out on top.
Let's get this thing ready for the track.
Right on.
Well, it's time to start the upgrades, and a good place to begin is with the rear axle. So Jeff and Kip with Moser Engineering brought along a piece of the puzzle that we're going to use to give that Cobra a run for its money. How you guys doing?
Just fine, Tom. How you doing?
Wonderful.
Good to meet you, Tom.
Basically, we start with a 2005 to 2010 factory Ford housing. We use our premium alloy steel when we make our axle, so it gains you about 30% in strength over a factory stock axle.
This 8.8 unit is built with both street and strip in mind, because it can handle big power and hard launches you see at a racetrack. But you don't have to fight a whole bunch of the ratcheting and hopping when you turn, like you might see with a clutch-style pause unit. It's built to slip right into this application, so no modification is necessary.
Looks like the install went smooth. That should give you the advantage you're looking for.
Yeah, man, it sure is a nice piece. You ought to stick around, see Rick get his hands dirty.
Sounds like a plan.
Coming up, better shocks, bigger, badder brakes, and the boss breezes in. The upgrades continue. Then the competition kicks off with the Roadster squaring off against the Snake.
We got the rear end in our Factory 5 Roadster upgraded to a Moser, and that means that we don't have to worry about breaking that thing when we're out whooping this thing on the track. But we still got a ways to go.
That's no joke, because we're putting the Roadster up against this real deal 427 in a no-hose-bar shootout, just to see what 45 years of know-how and technology can do.
The stock stuff will really get the job done. Whether you're headed to the racetrack or the mall, it's built to really perform well. In this case, we wanted to step things up.
Now this is Coney's 3012 Performance Shock. It's dual adjustable, features an aluminum body, and that means it weighs less, plus it runs cooler. Well, Jim, these are nice looking units, but they ain't gonna do much good off the car, so let's get them mounted. Now, changing these out really isn't too bad at all. Basically pulling two bolts, swapping one out for the other one, and set your ride height.
The cool thing about these shocks is they're double adjustable, so when you get to the track, you can test and tune on them and tweak the settings until you get them where you want.
All the power in the world ain't gonna do you a bit of good if you hit the wall at about 180. Dustin Burr with Willwood Brakes is here to help us out with that. Hey man, how's it going?
It's going great.
Sweet, looks like you brought some pretty sweet parts with you.
This is Willwood's 13-inch brake kit for the Factory 5 Roadster. We use a 13-inch rotor, an aluminum hat to save weight, and a 6-piston Dynapro 6 caliper. We plumb it all up with braided stainless hoses.
The concept behind this brake swap goes like this. We want to save ourselves some weight on the car and make sure the brakes don't get too hot either. These brakes are about 20% lighter than the ones we had, and the rotor is about 20% larger too. The pads that come along with them will keep us stopping even up around the 500-degree mark.
With these big brakes, you ought to be able to keep the Roadster from getting away from you. Thanks for letting us chip in.
Sure thing, man. Appreciate the help. With the brakes taken care of, that's one less thing we have to worry about in the driver's seat.
Now, the original car may have had 7 liters versus the Coyote motor, which only displaces 5 liters, but don't count it out. This is Ford's newest mod motor, the 5-liter Coyote. Now, horsepower was strapped onto their dyno a while back, and they were able to get 450 ponies at the flywheel and still be 50 state emissions compliant. Yeah, I tried doing that with one of those old 427s. Our Coyotes sit at about 465 horsepower, which is pretty doggone respectable. But you guys know us, we can't seem to leave anything alone. This Boss 302 intake from Ford Racing is really going to help open up the throat on our Coyote. That's basically a bolt-on component. You just swap it out with a stalker and couple it with a reflash computer, you're going to get almost 500 horsepower. The beauty of most late model mod motors is that they're reasonably easy to upgrade, taking minutes instead of hours. It's a matter of bolting on the new intake, plugging your fuel and air back in, and swapping out the reflashed computer.
Now that we have the motor back together, we can get the wheels on the car, get it back on the ground, set our ride height, then get the scales out and get the corner weights back where we need them.
Well, let's see what this old girl sounds like.
That sounds good, dude, but I want to see if it'll outrun that one.
Still ahead, scale it up, even it out, and get it ready for the track. The guys swing by a Roadster reunion. Then it's go time, baby.
We're just about ready to head off to the track, and since we upgraded our coilovers, we have to reset our ride height, and Jim's going to scale the car. Jim, what you got going on over there, bud?
So before we get the car on the scales, we got to set the ride height. So we're measuring here from the ground to the bottom of the frame rail. We wanted to get about 4.5 inches. Right now we're about 4. So what we need to do is reach in here and crank down on the coil spring. Because of how the spring's mounted on the lower control arm, you only have to go about half as far with the spring. So the 1/2 inch, we only need to go 1/4 inch down to get that full 1/2 inch back. When you set the car back down on the ground, the tires hold it up a little bit with the friction. You have to roll it back and forth a little so you can measure the correct height. There it is, 4.5, just like we need. Now we're going to repeat the whole process for the back with about 1/4 inch more height just to give it a little rake. So once we get the car on the scales, this is our total weight. We're going to turn off the left front and the right rear. That'll give us the cross weight on just those corners. Then we'll hit the percentage. 49.1 is pretty close, but what we're looking for is 50-50. So all we have to do is twist this coil over a couple times, maybe 2 full turns, and that should get us close to 50-50.
Well, we're heading out to a track that you guys may or may not have heard of. It's a tiny little mom and pop place known as Z-Max Dragway.
But first, we gotta take this dude for a little spin. Okay, we got this thing! We're cruising about 70!
Woo! Our little Coyote wants to run. That's a lot of motor for this little car, dude.
Dude, I want one of these. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
You know, this thing's kind of like riding in a time machine, man. Got old-timey gauges, classic interior. Heck, you resemble James Dean just a bit. One of these is fun enough. But throw together a whole mess of these old Roadsters, and that's a completely different level of awesomeness. And old Rick even got to hop in the Cobra.
That is one of the coolest things ever.
We're taking a bit to swing by a Factory 5 Roadster gathering. These cars tend to draw a crowd wherever they go, and the owners are a tight-knit bunch. Even Factory 5's president, Dave Smith, showed up.
I really love all these cars.
Oh, I guess the owners love them too.
More fun than you can handle.
Low and fast, I guess. A lot of fun.
It gets a reaction out of everybody. Little children who are in a sea of cars will point to this car. They'll notice it and pick it out of a crowd. There's something about this style car that just appeals to even a little kid.
Well, this is a great group of cars and a great group of guys. And believe me, they drive the wheels off of these things. And speaking of driving, coming up next, we're heading to the track.
After the break, we declare a winner in our Ford-powered shootout. You're watching MuscleCar. For a DVD copy of this episode, just go to PowerBlockTV.com and order your copy for just $5.95 plus shipping and handling. Start your own MuscleCar collection, delivered right to your door from the PowerBlock.
Today we've been pretty busy. We took one of Factory 5 Racing's Mark IV Roadsters and upgraded the rear end, brakes, shocks, and intake. Then we packed up the Roadster and a 427 Cobra for a trip to the Z-Max Dragway in Charlotte, North Carolina.
And what better place to line up our Factory 5 Roadster against an original 427 Cobra?
It ain't every day that you get to throw a couple of serious machines like this at each other, so we're gonna do it up right. These two cars may have a similar exterior, but they couldn't be any more different under the hood.
This is what you're looking at, a $1 million legend versus a souped up, modernized tribute that you can build yourself for well under 40 grand. First, we're gonna send them through an autocross style cones course to see what kind of times they can pull. Then we're gonna do a side-by-side braking test. This will tell us how they stand up to each other in terms of stopping power. And finally, we're gonna line them up for a good old-fashioned drag race, just to see which one's got the most hitch in its giddy-up.
These three tests should give us the ability to declare a winner. So the question remains, $1 million muscle, modernized Roadster. Let's go find out. Dave Smith, owner and president of Factory 5, is going to be driving the red Roadster. We'll let him go first.
The idea is pretty cool. I mean, basically, we're seeing how far technology has taken the design.
We're having Jim time all the runs, and that'll tell us how much that 45 years of tech has really brought us.
We're in the golden age of cars in terms of technology. What we're doing at Factory 5 is just bringing those technologies together, but staying faithful to the look of the car.
With a couple of practice runs under his belt, Dave can push his Roadster to see what it can do.
His times were getting quicker as he went. He got all the way down to a 10:72.
And now it's the Cobra's turn, and owner Jim Maxwell gets to put it through the paces.
I've driven other cars, but never driven this car on a solid course. My brother had one when I was a kid, and I fell in love with it then, and I was really distraught when he sold it, and so as soon as I had enough money to find one, I went hunting.
Now you can see there's a little bit more body roll in this car, but she sure ain't going down easy, despite the fact that this is a completely unrestored car on rock-hard street tires. Now let's see what the best run was.
Well, he ended up with a 1281. He was real consistent. He ran a 1281 twice.
Well, there you have it. The Roadster's tearing it up with a best time of 10.72 seconds. The Cobra's holding its own, though, with a best time of 12.8 seconds.
Coney shocks. These shocks were developed hand-in-hand with Coney.
Now we've seen how well they can turn, but what about stopping? You can't argue with a side-by-side comparison.
After several runs, Dave's Roadster had a best 60-0 distance of 87 feet, and Jim's Cobra had a best of 95 feet.
The Cobra had a little trouble keeping itself straight. It looks like those big Willwoods on the Factory 5 car made a big difference. All right, guys, one more test to perform, and that's a heads-up drag race. Now, the real question here is, can a late-model fuel-injected 5-liter motor keep up with a fuel-gulping race-bred 427?
Let's see if the new guy can hang with proven history. Line them up, guys. The 5-liter mod motor in the Factory 5 car is more than holding its own against that big block in the Cobra. In fact, Dave's having trouble keeping the tires planted on it.
That wasn't pretty right there. That was a fun ride for Dave. I'm sure he's glad that one was over.
The Coyote is chewing on the Cobra, but Jim brought a ringer to the party. You may have noticed we swapped out the driver with Bob Tasca. He's a professional. We want to make sure that we represent this car to the fullest.
And with times of 14:33 and 12:86, the Coyote pulls out the win.
There's a perception that small displacement means it's not going to make big power, but with this engine and late model technology, we're able to make almost 500 horsepower out of only a 302 cubic inch engine. So in a car that weighs just over 2,000 pounds, with street tires, this is about the most fun you're going to have.
Well, guys, hopefully we've been able to shine a little bit of light on why these cars are the legends that they are. I mean, hey, 45 years later, and this thing is still a serious contender. It's not just a museum piece.
And Factory 5 has managed to bring that experience to the average guy. You can get into one of these for something around 13, or one just like this for around 40. And I think I'm going to get me one of these things, man.
We need to go talk to Dave, get us a kit.